Welcome to the gift of being home. I'm Ann Lovely, CEO of Coastal Hospice, and for years, we've had the privilege of walking alongside families here on the Lower Eastern Shore during some of life's most sacred and vulnerable moments. And one thing we hear over and over again is this: we wish we had known sooner. Hospice is often misunderstood. Families wait too long. Caregivers feel like they're doing it all alone, and fear can take the place of understanding. So we created this space. For 46 years, our community has trusted Coastal Hospice to provide comfort, dignity, and support at the end of life. And this podcast is just an extension of that. We're here to talk honestly about what hospice really is, when to call, and how to care for someone you love with more confidence and peace. We'll walk through things like when hospice is appropriate, what the final days can look like, how to manage pain without fear, and how to support caregivers along the way. Whether you're caring for someone, referring patients, or just trying to understand more, this is a place for clarity and compassion. Because being home isn't just a place, it's about comfort, peace, and love. I'm really glad you're here.
Hi everyone, we're so glad you're tuning in today. Today's conversation, we're going to talk about something that many families wonder about, but aren't always sure what to expect. What actually happens when you call hospice? The first call can feel a little like a big step. Our goal today is to make it feel a little bit more approachable and a lot less uncertain for everyone. I'm really glad to be joined by Nancy Stewart. Nancy is our Director of Access and Palliative Care Services here at Coastal Hospice, and she brings so much insight into what the first connection really looks like for patients and families. Nancy, thank you so much for being here today. To get us started, can you walk us through what happens when someone reaches out to hospice for the very first time?
Yes, I absolutely will, Lauren, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a big step for people, and it's a scary step. It's filled with anxiety and emotions most of the time. So yeah, let's just talk it through so that people can feel a little bit less anxious. So when someone first calls hospice, they're going to speak to somebody in our access department or admissions department. That's what we call it. And it'll be an access coordinator most often. And the access coordinator is going to ask some information gathering questions. They're going to kind of first find out why are you calling hospice? What's going on right now that kind of triggered that phone call? Because you just don't wake up one Wednesday morning and think, hey, I'm going to call hospice today. So something's happened.
Right.
Was it, a new diagnosis? Was it a steep decline in either their health or their loved one's health? So they're going to ask you questions about what's going on at this moment. They're going to ask you questions about different symptoms or signs that your loved one or you yourself are exhibiting. They're going to try to find out what your feeling is on the hospice philosophy, which is we're going to move now towards comfort and no longer focus on cure. And we can get into a little bit more about that later, but they're just asking, they're going to do an intake form and they're going to ask you lots of questions. They're going to gather as much information as they can. They're going to find out who your physicians are or your providers. And they are going to explain what hospice is all about. They're going to go through all the steps to let you know, how does it work? What's the process of getting admitted? What's covered and how is it covered? Different insurances and how that all works. They're going to let you know what you are entitled to. That's a benefit through Medicare, Medicaid, and other insurances, but most of our patients are Medicare, a good portion of them. That is a benefit that you've paid into your whole entire life or working adult life that you are entitled to. So they're going to let you know what you're entitled to now.
That's really reassuring. That really does put things into perspective. Now, once someone does call you guys and you go through all that with them, what is like the next step? Like how long, let's say if they're like, this sounds great, I would really like for someone to come out. How quick is that turnaround time for them, would you say?
It's very quick. More often than not, we can set that appointment if the patient or family member is that sure during that first phone call. More times than not, we can set that admission appointment right there on the phone. If for some reason we can't, it would probably be most due to the fact that we don't have a clear-cut hospice diagnosis. Everyone's got diagnoses, but is it the diagnosis that would bring someone onto hospice? Is that the diagnosis that really is the terminal illness? And if we don't know that for sure by looking at the paperwork, we need to run it past our medical director or one of our team physicians to get the diagnosis, the right one. Sometimes people have so many diagnoses, we have to see which one is the prominent one. But normally the only reason we won't set something on the phone at that point in time is because we need to get the right diagnosis. And that's usually received within the same day or the very latest the next day.
Okay, awesome. That definitely makes sense. Now, with that being the next step, is it usually an evaluation that they get scheduled for, or is it a visit kind of like another informational when they go out?
More often than not, it's either an evaluation or an admission. They've already gotten all the information that they need, and if they are ready to, if we're talking about somebody who's ready for hospice, they would only get an evaluation visit if the doctor could not find a diagnosis to give them for hospice. If they have the diagnosis and they're ready to roll, we just go ahead and we schedule the admission appointment so that the access RN comes out. The only time they'll get the informational visit is if the patient and or family they're just not sure. They have a lot of questions and they'd rather do that in person with a nurse.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they have decided they definitely want hospice and an evaluation is going to happen, what can families expect? Like what kind of conversations are happening during that evaluation?
They are doing an evaluation of the physicality of that patient. They're looking for signs and symptoms. They're asking questions about things that are going on with them physically. So once they do that assessment of someone's signs, symptoms, and other things that are happening with them, the nurse, the access RN, because they're the ones who do the evaluation, has to be an RN, they will pick up the phone, they will call the doctor, and they will talk to the doctor right over the phone and say, this is what's happening. These are the signs and symptoms. And I do believe that they do qualify for hospice. They'll talk through it and they will come up with the diagnosis basically together. Although the doctor's the one that has to give the diagnosis and the order, but they will talk through it and they lend that they lend their eyes to that physician who can't put his own eyes on the patient.
See, I think that piece right there is having someone answer the questions probably makes it more understanding for the families that are kind of going through that. And I do think that that's very important. How does the hospice team work with the patient's primary care physician?
This is a good question because everybody always thinks you have to give up your provider, your PCP, to come onto hospice, and that's absolutely not true. If a patient has a primary care provider who is willing to stay as their attending provider through their time in hospice, they absolutely can keep them as their doctor or their nurse practitioner or their PA, whatever it is. So they don't have to take our doctors. Many people do opt to take them, but they don't have to. So what happens is the team, the nurse and social worker, chaplain, anybody who needs to coordinate, what they'll do is they'll contact the primary care physician and they will update them. They'll ask them for orders. They will give them information that is critical to that patient. They'll collaborate and talk through what's happening. They'll talk together on care plans. So they actually do call, have conversations, and keep them completely in the loop about what's going on with their patient.
So it sounds like they're very highly involved in that whole thing.
Absolutely.
Now, can a physician, let's say if they say, I'm really going to leave that up to you guys, you know, I really have that relationship with my patient, but I kind of want you guys to take over and write the orders and come up with all the things that hospice typically does with them, but I would love to have updates on them. Can they be involved that kind of way?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of community providers do opt to, maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but a fair number do opt to have the hospice physician follow the patient or be the attending physician, because they are not 100% really totally comfortable with hospice and the different ways that we do medications and the different things that could be coming up. The symptoms, the end-of-life symptoms are different than anything else. So sometimes they would rather the expert do it. If that's the case and they would like to be updated, they just need to know that our team will update them on a regular basis. I do one each month right now for one of the offices, and I will update them monthly on their patients. If they wanted weekly updates, they can have that. They need to kind of set that stage of what they would like, and then they just need to let our office know when they call to see if they'll follow. They just need to let our office know during that phone call how often they'd like to be updated.
I think that's great, because I do hear a lot in the community for patients that are kind of going back and forth whether or not they would like their loved one on services. But the biggest thing for them is giving up their primary, they say. And I know they have that rapport with them. And same thing with the primary cares. They're near and dear to their hearts. Some of these people have been with them for 30 years.
Yes.
So I don't want them to feel like they're kind of giving up on the patient if they're letting them come on the hospice services. So this definitely probably paints a good picture and lets people know that it's okay. We're trying to walk alongside of one another during this journey with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, for the families that might be unsure, like let's say it's not cookie cutter and they haven't said, oh, I accept hospice. Let's say they're still unsure. Is there any obligation once they make that call to us that they have to kind of sign up, or is there any obligation at all once they might think, I'm not too sure, and then what happens? Do you guys give them maybe a phone number to call back again if they're just like, I don't really know if this is right for my loved one yet? Like, what happens after that?
That happens all the time because it's a big step. Let's be honest. If someone's referred to hospice, the chances are they are declining and they're very, very sick. So no, there's absolutely no obligation to anything. Somebody, if they just have the phone call, then that's, then we hang up. I'm not sure. I'll call you back. And then, of course, yes, we would give them our number. If someone comes out to the home and does an informational or even an eval and they are not sure, there's no obligation at all. Absolutely not. You can say, I'll give you a call back in a few days. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my family about it. Let me tell you this. You can even be on hospice. You can sign on to hospice. You can sign all the paperwork, come on to hospice, and there's still no obligation. Because if it's not everything that you think it will be and more, you don't have to stay on. You can come off of hospice anytime you feel it's not right for you. So you're never locked into anything.
That probably makes people feel very good to hear that today, because I do think a lot of times people think you sign on for hospice, that's the end all be all.
Right. And everything else just falls away and that's all you've got. No, not at all.
Right. Well, I think this has been very helpful during this conversation, especially in taking some of that unknown out of that first step. I think it can kind of be very scary for people. I think that really stands out that this is when you call hospice, you're not just committing to anything. You're simply just opening up the door to information when they first call, guidance and support from our team to help them navigate what may come next. I really appreciate you coming today and walking us
you.
through this and helping make that first call feel a little less overwhelming for everyone. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today. We're so glad that you spent part of the day with us. We hope this conversation has brought you clarity, comfort, and a better understanding of what to expect when you reach out to us for the very first time at hospice. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.